Good evening, campers, dreamers, and babysitters, and welcome to our Raw Reaction review for the first 5 episodes of It. Welcome to Derry. Yeah, I can't really do our usual thing with that, but this is really cool. I'm happy that this happened. HBO, honestly, a little bit of a hit or miss when it comes to things like screeners, early access. They really hold things close. Like we tried to get Last of Us, didn't work out. But I was really happy with this because, yes, this is a big horror property, and we are a horror channel. So yeah, you gotta cover it, right? It is gonna be big. It's something that, like, I think if we were talking about this freshly off the '90s film, we didn't have anything, and this was rebooting the property, I think it would be big. But I feel like even though I know I'm not alone in my kind of disdain or at least like not being the biggest fan of it, chapter 2, I still think that this property, especially with the Bill Skarsgård Pennywise, still kind of a juggernaut out there for fans. I think a lot of horror fans show up for these.
I think people are excited about this. Regardless of how you feel about chapter 2, I think chapter 1 was so strong for a lot of fans that it has instant intrigue to get an expansion on the lore. Of course, to see Bill Skarsgård again, a lot of people really enjoy his performance. So I can see this really being highly anticipated for a lot of fans or just horror fans in general. Now, for me personally, I went from not interested at all into this. I didn't know why we were getting it. I wasn't clamoring for it. Then I went from the Sunday Scaries, where we covered that first 10 minutes where it was seen. I can't remember what festival that was seen at, but
I think it was Fantastic Fest.
was it Fantastic Fest?
That might have been.
And we kind of just went through that, and those first 10 minutes sounded extremely compelling. And I got really intrigued for this one. So then once we got the screeners, which admittedly I wasn't sure if we were going to get this early or
Yeah,
not, but I was excited to see this in our inbox to really tackle. And I got to say, overall, I'm excited to see those last 3 episodes.
absolutely. Yeah. So again, only the first 5 episodes here, folks. So we're not going to sit here and give you like a full blown, this is our rating, this is our thoughts on it. Welcome to Derry. We're going to kind of just give you the flavor, a little bit of what we're feeling like, a little bit of what's going on with these. Obviously, without knowing the ending, I can't put a final grade or stamp to it. So, we'll come back if we get those other 3 episodes, or if, we end up watching the end of the series with you guys and you guys want a follow-up here. Because yeah, I agree with you, Luke. I think that this is a really strong first, like, I guess, outing here with this new series. They really aren't pulling any punches, and I mean that literally. They've got some surprises at store here, and they're taking some big swings that I didn't know how to feel at first, because again, being burned a little bit by It Chapter 2, I didn't know what route we were going to go. And I can say, as being a big fan of It Chapter 1, we're much, much more in that camp as far as the kind of Andy Muschietti It story we're getting here.
Chapter 1, I thought, really did excel from its storytelling, from the town of Derry, and from Pennywise himself. So this one really does have stronger connective tissue, I think, to that first chapter. And the characters that they build in here, the world of Derry, is really authentic. I think you really do feel like you're in the town, you're with these characters, and that's such a big part of it. We didn't want a retelling of what we had seen in the past. And this does feel similar, but it feels different. So it doesn't feel like they're copy and pasting anything. It does feel like it's its own thing, and they're making a case for this to exist. It just isn't a cash grab. They're really establishing a different kind of lore to Pennywise and what we're going to get with these characters.
Yeah, and I do appreciate, just like, again, the table setting here, the time that we're taking to really like get our kind of what we're hoping, I guess, if all of us are really looking forward to this, is going to be an overall satisfying addition to the It Pennywise, universe here. And I like the idea that they're taking with this going backwards, you said, in time. And if this is the tone and this is kind of what we're dealing with, I could really get on board with them kind of making these, 8-hour long movies for this franchise, as long as they really play as nicely as they are now. Because, yeah, one of the biggest risks when it comes to, I think, Stephen King properties as a whole, and especially when it comes to Stephen King series, is when we start making references, when we start dragging characters, cameos, things like that from other stories into stories. And the fact that they do that here, but I think in like one of the most effective ways I've seen it done in a while. I really applaud Andy Muschietti here with the handling of this character, not only in the writing, but also just like how they're interjecting them and at what kind of I guess a frequency you'd say. And it really creates some satisfying moments as a massive Stephen King fan when you see somebody like this character and what we're dealing with in a Derry story with Pennywise, crossing paths. It is very satisfying.
Absolutely. It feels so authentic, and the character you're referring to, referencing, a different Stephen King property and being dropped into the town of Derry, there's a case to be made there. And it feels like there's a kinship with this character and adding to the lore of both their respective Stephen King property as well as the It property itself. So it's really intriguing to kind of find this happy marriage. It never feels like something shoehorned in to say, "Oh, we just want to have a familiar face for fan lore and for everyone to be excited about." It really does feel like they're taking the established lore, but they're adding pages to it. They're adding a little bit more texture than what we had found these characters with, and I love that aspect of it because it really does feel like they're treating it, Welcome to Derry, as its own thing where they want to use this as a device for storytelling, but they also bring a lot of great terror into this. I'll say the first 2 episodes of this really had me engaged. Not to say that the other last 3 didn't. There's some very intriguing stuff in there, but those first 2 episodes, not knowing what to expect, but being mildly intrigued into this really makes you go all in with your chips and say, I can't wait to see what's next.
Yeah, and I think like truly I feel that way after episode 5 as well. But like I think that overall you're right, those first 2 episodes they are really great at setting the stage. They really do a good job of just like taking your time. Like it's literally 2 hours, or no, isn't it a little over 2 hours, because I think the second episode's an hour and 5 minutes.
Yes, yep.
uh but like yeah, so it's a little more than that, but like it all feels like we're building towards something. I hate when I turn on a series and it has one idea and it doesn't know how to just build off of that properly. And we're kind of just like doing, Walking Dead things where it's like, we're just going here, killing time. Everybody's all somber and stuff. We're not doing that here. We're really moving and we're really like building this town out. Like, I feel like this is one of the most fleshed out, like, towns that we're going to see out of a Stephen King property in quite some time. And I just mean that by the number of characters, no matter big or small, that we interact with throughout this, and just, the kind of effect that an entity like Pennywise has on said town.
I love that added element to it as well. It's what we do see in chapter 1 and chapter 2 to a certain extent, but I never felt like it fully got there with making the town feel so off, making Pennywise feel like this cancer, it's the underbelly of the town that's really just affecting the adults and making them behave in such a weird manner. But we absolutely get that with Welcome to Derry. Derry feels like its own character, like they're so off in a sense. There's a great supermarket scene in this
Hmm.
as well that is, I think, a lot of people are going to talk about. It is so unsettling when we walk in, when you just know something's off, and as you progress through that sequence, and things just become more and more off until you get a really nice payoff. And I think there are a lot of scenes like that in Welcome to Derry that there's going to be at least 2 scenes, I think, walking out of each episode that you're going to be very happy with, and really just uniqueness to it. Now, one of the big issues that I've always had with it in general, with chapter 1 and chapter 2, was the CGI, and I think not all the CGI works here. Now, Dylan and I were talking about this before we hopped on here. We don't know necessarily if we've gotten the finished product. There's a message that says, there things are still being worked on, but there is one element of CGI in here in one of the episodes that was pretty jarring to me in terms of kind of distracting. But I think overall, the narrative and the terror that's being presented here, even some of the CGI that doesn't work, the tension that's built up is makes that forgivable because yeah, you can't really do that from a practical aspect of it. So it's forgivable to a certain extent. It doesn't really take you out of it. There's a couple things in here that I will give it a strike on, but a lot of it really does work.
Yeah, I'm gonna also second that with you, where that was a big drawback for me, especially getting into the later episodes, is just like the amount of CGI and just like how much of it we actually like have to see and like what it turns into. Because like in small amounts here and there, like it's fine, it's really good, and you can tell they've had time to work on those. But it just seems like, again, could be an unfinished version. There are moments where it just feels like we are back to the It Chapter 2. We're bigger than big when it comes to stuff. Like, it's just like, I need you to just, I like it when it's a little bit more intimate, when it's a little bit more, you know, tangible. Like, I like the monsters, don't get me wrong. I love that Pennywise goes, balls to the wall in both films with his monsters and stuff like that. But like, we can do more practical effects with these. They don't have to be a big effects showcase for that. But I also think that just comes with the territory, because I know if you look at all of Andy Muschietti's filmography, they're all very CGI heavy. Even Mama, to an extent, has a lot of CGI. So it's like, this is just a tool that he really likes to use. So I kind of went in expecting that, I should say.
So did I to a certain extent, but like not being as engaged and then being fully engaged for those first two episodes. I think that dynamic caught me off guard because of what we do see in episode 3 is rather distracting. And then we get a couple of follow-ups with 4 and 5. I don't think anything in terms of episode 3 in terms of how big of an issue I had with it, but
Yeah.
I think, again, conceptually, the terror is there. It really does feel like they took their time with this and really wanted to build up some unique scares, because there are a lot of interesting things with the setting of Derry, what they decide to do, and really just build a lot of terror with it. And it really does work. There's a lot of great payoffs in this. And that's what I really love about it, where it doesn't feel monotonous. Each episode, they are pushing that, 55 to over an hour mark, but they're really engaging to get through. And each episode, I feel like, has its own voice, which one of the things we were nervous about was just feeling repetitive, feeling monotonous of what we had seen with chapter 1 and chapter 2. But they dive down this realm of lore, and there's an episode in here where we do get some of the backstory again, and it's not really a retelling of what we had seen. It does really feel like its own thing, and the goals that we're kind of setting for each character. And I love injecting that lore and kind of our mission, so to speak, of what we're going to be dealing with. And I like those elements to it because we intertwine a lot of great terror.
I agree completely. Yeah. I think this is a very strong first outing, very first showing for Welcome to Derry. I think that this is all signs pointing to this at least being a very solid season, unless they really fumble things in these last 3 episodes. Which, I mean, not to lie, when they leave us off, there's a lot of balls in the air at this time. So that's why I say we can't really leave you with a definitive like answer. But I can certainly say that the first 5 episodes, I would say, if you are a fan of Stephen King, if you're a fan of Pennywise, you are already going to watch this. But if you enjoyed anything about those first, like, well, I'd say the first movie of the remakes, this is definitely worth checking out. Give those first 2 episodes a watch and see if it's worth continuing for you. But like, I think I'm going to stick with this, and I'm excited to see what comes next, especially if they can stick to this quality.
I think you're in agreement, Dylan, that I know I certainly was, that chapter 2 left us on a bit of a sour note with
Mhm.
the It franchise. So not necessarily overly excited going into this, but I will say, even if you're in that camp with us, give those first 2 episodes a shot, because like I said at the start of this, I was fully engaged. I was all in with the after those first 2 episodes. That anything that happened after that, I made a case to say, oh, it's forgivable to a certain extent, which nothing in here is like jarring or a big strike to say I can't continue the rest of the series. So definitely
Mhm.
give this one a try, even if you're already sour on the franchise and are hesitant to dive into this one. I think you're going to find a lot of great stuff in those first 2 episodes and the 3 that are beyond that as well, because they do take this in an interesting route. They build some characters that aren't overly unique, but they feel like they're their own thing. It doesn't really feel like they're ripping. There's a lot of nods to other past, or I guess future characters that are going to be happening, but this never feels like they're ripping off what we had seen. So it does really feel like its own thing. It does feel like they're taking some interesting avenues. You're going to see some familiar faces as well, and a lot of unique kills, I think. So this one, if you're not subscribed, I would definitely go get a subscription to HBO, I think this one is worth it, at least for those first 5 episodes, to at least check out.
Agreed. And you guys can check out It's Welcome to Derry this Sunday. So yeah, definitely check this one out. You know, we'll have the Sunday Scaries going on at the same time. But yeah, you guys will definitely have to give this a watch. It's a lot of fun. It's really good. And I think this will be a good week to week kind of, showing. I don't know. I think they'll probably just do the first episode. I don't know if it's a simultaneous release. I know some series like to do that, especially when it's the first season. But this one, certainly stick with it for at least the 2 and then make a decision, because I think that this is going to win you over. And yeah, I think that we'll follow up as soon as we can see the rest of this. Like I said, whether we see it with you guys or if we get a screener for ahead of time, we'll give our final thoughts on it. But hey, I think that the It franchise got a little bit of TLC that it desperately needed. So I'm happy with this. Luke's happy with this. We hope you will also be. But yeah, guys, it's going to wrap us up here. So if you're new here, hit that subscribe button if you feel we deserve it. And yeah, that's going to wrap it up. So until next time, I'm Dylan Newell.
And I'm Luke Janesco.
And remember, stay scared.
Do the hard shit, gonna do it live. Cause Splattercast kick it every day they live. Splattercast, gonna smash your ass. Splattercast, gonna smash your ass. Splattercast, gonna smash your ass. Splattercast, gonna smash your ass.